Hello everyone and welcome to my final analysis of the first season of Stranger Things for the weekend binge. And I am, as I mentioned in a previous video, re-recording this because the original video was lost thanks to a corrupted memory card. And I think in a way that's kind of a good thing, because I went off of some notes I wrote down originally, and it came off as stilted in this format. So I'm going to change this up, and I'm not going to use any notes. I'm going to give you my honest overall thoughts on this season, just off the top of my head. And you know, if you haven't watched the actual season yet, and you're coming here from the introduction video for this series, I will give, again, like my overall feelings, whether or not I think you should binge this, before I get into somewhat spoiler territory. So, the first season of Stranger Things. Do I think it is binge-worthy? Absolutely. If you've watched any of the videos of me doing reviews for each individual episode, it should be clear that I love this season. I want to say I love this show, but I haven't watched the second season yet, and the third season will be coming out when this goes public on YouTube. Or actually it'll be before, because I think it goes open to the public at midnight when it's July 4th, whatever. Anyway, this will be coming out on the same day. And insofar as the first season, yes, I highly recommend giving this show a watch. If you are in the mood to dedicate, each episode is just short of an hour, so let's say dedicate at least 7 hours of your life to a show. I could not recommend the first season of Stranger Things more. And I may say the same when it comes to the second season. That'll have to wait and see, which is actually going to be the next edition of the Weekend Binge. So again, before I get into some of my overall thoughts, sort of go back into spoiler territory, I want to say this. Those of you that have watched, whether it's just the introduction video and then this one, or if you've gone through, all of the episodes on this series, or somewhere in between, please leave your thoughts on the format of the Weekend Binge series in the comments. Or if you'd rather not in the comments, send me your thoughts via email to PapaKennMedia@gmail.com, or however you would like to communicate it with me. I'm very interested to know your thoughts, what you think works about this series, and what you think you would change, or something that shows promise but it's just not quite there. Again, this is a very experimental series, especially with me releasing all of the videos at once, kind of in a similar format to how Netflix is doing its shows. And yeah, I'm just very intrigued to hear your all's thoughts, so please, let's just say I'm begging at this point, please do leave your thoughts in the comments down below here or elsewhere, and let me know, whether it's if you're trying to give me some criticism or just give me your thoughts, and it's outside of this video, at least give me some context, so it's not just kind of like, what are they talking about? You know what I mean. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Now, as for this season, again, we're going to get into some spoiler territory here. If you haven't actually watched the show, just to reiterate, highly recommend giving it a binge watch. This show is an 80s nerd, or if you grew up in the 80s / the 90s, this show is just filled with amazing nostalgia. Now, it takes place in 1983, which is a year before I was born. And so, to that degree, I don't have the same nostalgia exactly for the time period that this is supposed to take place in. But I do have enough recollection of childhood, whether it be personal, through videos, through pictures, that I see a lot of what is in this show. And it feels so real. It feels authentic to me. I'm sure that there's some mistakes here or there through some of the episodes. I mean, it's about impossible to find a show that doesn't have some mistakes, whether it's, you know, like props being there that shouldn't be. I think I actually saw on one IMDb page that in one scene Hopper is using like a modern walkie-talkie instead of one of the time appropriate or era appropriate radios. So I mean, stuff like that happens, but by and large it truly does feel authentic. The music, all of the music in this feels perfect for it. It has the feeling of 80s horror films, 80s music to a degree. With the exception of Should I Stay or Should I Go, we don't really have that many licensed songs in this show. It's like they might pop up every now and then, but they're fairly rare. The rest of it is just background music, ambient noise, and it all, again, it feels appropriate for the 80s. Whenever I hear it come on, like the synthesizers, it makes me think of 80s music. More on the pop side of things, obviously, but it does feel authentic. And when it comes to the characters, I mean, there are some I hate, that much is clear. There are some I absolutely love. There's some that, I feel might have even been neglected a bit, or didn't grow as much as certain other characters. But in reflection, that feels real, in a way. Not everyone grows or evolves in life at the same pace as everyone else. And when certain events happen to certain people, it's going to affect how they grow from those events. In the case of Eleven, she goes from this terrified little girl who, she knows she has her powers, but she is just absolutely scared. And then at the end, she's not scared, but she has found her courage. She has found the courage to, despite the fact that she is terrified, that she is being confronted by this monster that started all of this. Well, all of what's happening in this season anyway. It was Papa that started the rest of it, needless to say. But she confronts this thing and just utterly destroys it, sacrificing herself. And it's like that's just one example of so many characters going through so many things, and everyone's reactions feel real. And that's part of why I think, especially when Lucas was being a jerk to Eleven and he was getting more upset, or seemingly even overly upset about certain things happening, part of why I got so frustrated with him, because not everyone has the same mindset as me. No one has the same mindset as you. Everyone is different, and everyone reacts to events differently. And I can't say that it's definitely not bad acting. Everyone in this show was a good actor. The only person who might approach not being a good actor would be the little girl who plays Holly, and she's supposed to be 3. So, I mean, there's only so much you can do. But yeah, everyone's reactions feel real. They feel authentic. Even Steve, as much as I loathed him throughout the majority of this season, the way he responds to seeing Jonathan in Nancy's room. Again, and I said this before, I don't excuse his actions. I in no way excuse what he did or what he had Tommy do. But trying to look at it from the perspective of a teenager who, up to this point, yeah, we just kind of thought that he was somewhat infatuated with Nancy, or she was just his latest fling. Because even she says, it's like, he's been with other girls. So, he kind of seems to be a player. He's the popular boy, or one of the popular kids at school. But it's the way he reacts is also indicative of just being hurt, being betrayed. Even though he's not right in, he wasn't actually betrayed. He was lied to, but he wasn't betrayed in the way that he thinks he was. But from his perspective, it's just like, he clearly has very strong feelings for Nancy. Like, he authentically cares about her. So the way he reacts, again, not appropriate at all in any way, but if you try and look at it from the perspective of someone who might be that age, someone who's not quite an adult yet, still has a lot of growing up to do, despite the fact that, they're, again, I think supposed to be seniors or whatever. But seeing something like that at that point in your life is just kind of devastating. So, I don't want to go into too much more detail because I've rambled on far too long in the other videos. But yeah, all of the characters felt real. Even those who might have seemed a bit stereotypical, to say the least, such as Ted, Mike's dad. Now, that being said, when it comes to, in regard to characters, there are two in particular who just still, it bothers me how they ended up. It goes along with, the saying is like, with everyone, the way that they react to things, how they're acting, it feels real to me. Death plays no favorites. So the fact that, in my opinion, two innocents died unnecessarily in this show, the show is doing what it's supposed to do. It is getting an emotional reaction out of me. One for Benny, who, again, Benny deserved better. He in no way ever deserved what happened to him when that woman came in there pretending to be from social services. He had a good heart. It's like we only see him for a few scenes. Like, I'm not even sure we see him for 5 minutes. It might be a little bit over that, but not much. But he's clearly someone with a good heart. And just trying to do what he could to help this little girl. And because he trusted this woman who, again, as far as he knew, she was social services, he died. And I have no qualms with the fact that her brain got melted and her eyes just like bled and melted out. Good for you, 11. I'm so glad that lady got what was coming to her. And then Barbara. And it really, in a way, what happens to Barbara hurts even more than what happened to Benny. Because, we don't get to know much about her, really. It's like she's very much a nerd. She's very seclusive. She has seemingly very few friends, of which Nancy is in that seemingly in that short list, or rather in that seemingly short list. And she's loyal. She cares about Nancy. She wants Nancy to be safe. She's looking out for her. Insomuch that even after Nancy tells her to go home, she stays at the house, there at the pool. And again, who knows if she would have stayed the whole time, but it didn't matter because the Demogorgon found her. And this is actually going to lead into probably my only real annoyance with the show. But what we see at the beginning of episode 3 is her, like, coming to being covered in this decaying ooze. And then while she struggles to try and escape, she's taken by the Demogorgon. And we don't see her again until the next to last episode. And she's a decayed, mutilated corpse. Maybe mutilated's not the right word, but I don't know what else you would say as to the vision we got of what was left of Barbara. And this brings me to, again, my one true annoyance, or maybe just confusion with the show. So Will was the first one taken. He was chased by the Demogorgon and taken to the Upside Down. Now, everyone else who is taken by the Demogorgon dies. We either see their corpse or it's assumed that they're dead. And yet Will, who was taken there the soonest, Barb being the second, which is like a couple of days later, how is it that in all that time he did survive? Like, he's... I mean, if you think of it this way, he's the weakest one. He's just a little kid. Yes, he could probably run pretty fast, but in the eyes of a predator, he's a little snack. So how did he manage to survive all that time in the Upside Down? How did he escape the Demogorgon when it took him from that shed to the Upside Down? It doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know, maybe, especially since Will is back and he's alive and something's going on with him, maybe we'll get a little bit more insight. Maybe we'll get flashbacks to his experience there in the Upside Down, like what happened after it took him. Because as it stands, it just doesn't make sense to me. Everyone else that gets taken after him dies. Seemingly immediately. But Will, this kid who, like, is just taken, manages to survive for... How long does this show take place? At least a week, maybe going on 2? I would say probably about at least a week. I'm not totally sure of the time frame. Could probably say that each episode is approximately a day, maybe? Yeah, sure, we'll go with that. But yeah, that's, again, just to reiterate, that's my only true annoyance with this season, is just that it leaves a really big, strange plot hole. And, I mean, some of the adults, especially Joyce, says things about Will that I guess could be used to explain as, like, he's smart. He's different, so maybe he would be able to find his way or find a way to escape the monster without being seen. But it's not the same as us actually knowing what happened. Like, I want to know. And if they honestly don't explain that to any degree in the second season, I'll be really annoyed. And that's really the only reason why I'm not fully considering it an annoyance, because maybe it's just something that they already planned to address in the second season, which is something I hate in a lot of modern shows and even movies, where it's like, oh, well, we didn't explain it in this one, but we'll explain it in the sequel, and then you never know if a sequel is actually going to happen. Thankfully it did in this case, or rather a second season happened in this case, but I just hate it when people leave the plot threads open like that. It's just like, oh, you'll just have to wait until the next one. And then sometimes the next one doesn't happen. But yeah, really anything else you want to know about my thoughts with this season, I went over it in far too much detail in the episodes where I cover each individual episode. But yeah, if it's not already painfully clear, go watch Stranger Things Season 1 if you haven't already. I will be binge watching the second season very soon, again, which will be brought to you in another form of the Weekend Binge. And then after that, Season 3, brand new, off the press, and probably a month or so late, because I probably won't get that out until August, whatever. So those are going to be the overall first 3 series for the Weekend Binge. I'll be covering Stranger Things, a show that, at least up to this point in the first season, I adore, and I want to know more. And I want questions answered, including what the heck is going on with Hop. This is something that I forgot to address in the episode 8 video. When he says to Dr. Brannard, or whatever his name is like, I'll tell you where your little science experiment is. I'm convinced that he was saying that to make the doctor think that he doesn't care. That he doesn't care about this little girl. That all he wants is just to get the deal done and get to Will, which is part of it. I mean, that definitely is part of it in my mind. It's like, he's wanting these people out of his way. He wants to save Will. And the only way, seemingly, in order for him to get past is to make the doctor think that he has no personal, emotional connection to Eleven. Which, I mean, it wouldn't be incorrect to say he doesn't. He only just met her. But at the same time, it seemed like something out of character for him to say, and that's because I feel like he was saying that to convince the doctor. Because also what we see at the end with him taking the Eggos and the food to that spot out in the woods, like, he's wanting to try and find Eleven and, I don't know, hopefully take care of her. Then again, he also went off with the agents, so maybe he's working for them now and trying to find Eleven for them. I don't know. I don't know. But I am looking forward to finding out more in the second season. So everyone, please, again, let me know your thoughts on this series as a whole. Let me know your thoughts on the first season of Stranger Things in general. Let me know if there's anything in particular that stood out to you as just an amazing moment. Any particular characters that you feel might have been an underdog or is underappreciated in this show. Or maybe even a character you think might be overhyped in a way. I guess that's one way to put it. Anyway, just let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I am looking forward to hearing what you all have to say about this weird little experiment of mine. So, until next time everyone, for the Weekend Binge, or just the next one of my videos in general, I am Papa Ken, and I will see you in the next video.